Alright, it's time. Oh, why am I doing this, you ask? Well, maybe it's because I don't want literal spyware on my computer. Let's get into it. Adobe. Arguably the most notable name when the discussion of computer software designed for creatives comes up. As someone with a graphic design degree, all of my professors like to call the suite of programs the industry standard. It may not be a monopoly, but it certainly has had a stranglehold on the market since its inception in 1982. Established in 1982 by John Warnock and Charles Geschke. Whatever. That. After leaving a company formerly known as Xerox PARC, but currently known as SRI Future Concepts Division. Coincidentally, Xerox is a major name in the history of computing innovation alongside Adobe, inventing the graphical user interface, but that's just a little aside for you. In 1983, Adobe launched their first product, PostScript. This was a major innovation in printing and put Adobe on the map. 1985, Illustrator was released, forever changing the face of digital art. 1990, the most popular software ever created by Adobe was unveiled, Photoshop. This will remain their flagship product to this very day. 1991, Premiere comes along, a video editing software still used to this very day by big Hollywood productions. 1993, Acrobat and PDF files. Funnily enough, the phrase PDF file means something entirely different these days. 1994, After Effects. Visual effects works in films are revolutionized. 1995, PageMaker. Nobody remembers PageMaker. 1996, Dreamweaver. Overpriced software that makes your code look slightly prettier. Just use Visual Studio, dum-dum. 1998, InDesign. Arguably one of the most important softwares they ever invented alongside Photoshop. Graphic design was an ever-expanding field at the time, and this software took it to the next level. 1999, Live Motion. What the fuck was Live Motion? 2001, Audition. Adobe enters the digital audio workstation field, and honestly, who the fuck uses Audition? 2003, some might say this is the turning point. The Creative Suite is unveiled. For one exuberant price, you can have the current version of all of Adobe's flagship products, but you pay it once and have it forever, right?
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
2005, Flash. Man, Flash is a throwback to all of us old enough to remember when console video games cost $50. Perhaps I'll take a look at it someday. It's very dead now. 2005? I think it's older than that. I don't know, maybe I gotta double check my sources. Same year they released Bridge. It's literally just Files Explorer but with an Adobe Paint job. Why the fuck is this a thing, and why haven't they killed it yet? 2007, Lightroom. It's like super Photoshop for when photographers need to import a lot of shots at once. 2008, AIR. Adobe Integrated Runtime. I don't know what this is. Something software engineers use. I don't know if it's still around, nor do I care. Adobe, despite being hella expensive, were clearly masters of their craft. Some programs outshined others, but the heavy hitters were huge. What is this fucking voice I'm doing? The only thing they were disliked for at the time was for how absurdly expensive their programs were. But those in industry who had used their software had to give them props. They knew how to dev good software. At the time anyway, it seemed they could do no wrong, until the 2010s were upon us. 2010, Muse. It's literally just Super Dreamweaver. 2011, Edge Animation. I don't know what this is, but I think I've seen a few on Newgrounds. And, of course, in 2011, Adobe made their first colossal mistake, Creative Cloud. This was a switch from the pay once for Creative Suite and have the programs until you wanted to upgrade model to a subscription-based service. Everyone disliked that. But some people just took it on the nose and accepted it. But little did they know, just a decade later, they'd be a victim of a big, no good, very bad oopsie once again. Fun fact, I have a bachelor's degree. Moving on with the history of Adobe, 2012, Speed Grade. Color grading? Like in Premiere? Did they really need a separate program, or did they just combine them after the fact? Wasn't everybody using DaVinci Resolve for that, or was it not out yet? Oh, whatever, next year. 2013, Story, a script development tool. Do they mean scripts like for movies or like to run on a computer? I mean, who cares? Pretty sure they killed it anyway. 2015, Fresco, a drawing app, and XD, a UI/UX dev tool. 2020, Arrow, an augmented reality tool. That same year, Substance came out. I literally don't understand the description for that one. That was their last product, but what else happened in 2020? No, not that. That's right, dear viewer. The rise of AI. Adobe soon became interested in it and inevitably added a generative AI tool to Photoshop. But then, they shifted in 2024 from a software company to something else. 2024, Adobe becomes a spyware company protected in legalese. I hope you enjoyed that little history lesson. Adobe has been built up as a software company in the computing world as almost too big to fail. Something else like Google comes to mind, but everything can fail. Everything can. Recently, Adobe's interest in generative AI and machine learning has become a concern for creatives that use their products on the regular. There is also the integration of their cloud servers. Some people thought it was a good idea to back up their files to the cloud. My dear viewer, it is almost always a bad idea to put stuff in the cloud. The only thing I put in the cloud are scripts for these very videos, but that might change soon. Adobe has revealed in their latest update to Creative Cloud Services that it is mandatory to agree to allow them to moderate your content in order to improve the user experience, which is a loaded thing to say to their customers, almost like they've built up a massive enterprise over decades and see themselves as royalty subjecting their peasants to whatever they will. And again, that's that too big to fail mentality. You might be thinking, well, can't we just sue? Can't we just sue? Sure you can, but a petty $1 million or so lawsuit is pocket change for companies like these. Let's take a look at what they said, and why so many people are very, very mad with them. So I'm going to read the changes Adobe made to their terms of service that has everyone angry and or confused. I'm referencing screenshots from a YouTuber, Theo, Rants, and will link his video below. Adobe has altered these changes so many times now, so I want to try to get as close as possible to what started this. So I will read the sections. 4.2 Licenses to your content. Solely for the purposes of operating or improving the services and software, you grant us a non-exclusive, worldwide, royalty-free, sub-licensable license to use, reproduce, publicly display, distribute, modify, create derivative works based on, publicly perform, and translate the content. For example, we may sub-license our right to the content to our service providers or to other users to allow the services and software to operate as intended, such as enabling you to share photos with others. Separately, Section 4.6 feedback below covers any feedback that you provide to us. Alright, pay attention to that one phrase, create derivative works based on. Keep that one in mind. They've also declared that they may access your files for content moderation. I'm not sure if that means files just stored in the cloud or locally on your computer. On one hand, this is good and prevents illegal materials from getting out there. On the other hand, this can be in direct violation of NDAs and other legally binding contracts. The moderation segment was extremely vague. With their vagueness, they could arguably just remove stuff they don't like. So I'd recommend saving locally, but there's some implications that they may potentially be able to access those too. I'm not as knowledgeable on this tech stuff as someone like Mudahar from SomeOrdinaryGamers. He also made a video about this situation with a more in-depth look at the tech side, so go check that one out as well. Link in description. Anyway, at a certain point, Adobe actually had a very similar thing in their TOS agreement, shown here from a screenshot from that same Theo Rants video. But that was really before they were pushing their AI software, which is probably the biggest reason artists are big mad right now. Okay, so look, I've been over AI before. Some of you think I'm an AI hater, but that's not true. I literally use ChatGPT all the time. AI art, if you can call it art, is a different animal, so to speak. So, the biggest issue most people have with AI art is its unethical training. Many AI models are trained off of images that these companies don't own the copyrights to, therefore making it intellectual property theft. These AI companies have been in and out of court. It's a whole thing, but today we're talking about Adobe. It's entirely possible that Adobe is using users' creations to train their AI tools and doing so legally with this agreement. And that's no good.
That's no good.
That's why artists big mad. Adobe has since tried to run damage control with a string of pathetic tweets, which I will read now. We recently made an update to our terms of use with the goal of providing more clarity in a few specific areas. We have received a number of questions resulting from this update and want to provide some clarity. There's also a community note on this, which says the prominent point of contention is Section 4.2, which is not addressed in this response. Section 4.2 is titled Licenses to Your Content. Okay? Gotta love community notes. The best thing, probably the only good thing Elon ever did. Adobe will never assume ownership of a customer's work. Keyword ownership. Remember what I said about the derivative content? Anyway, Adobe will never assume ownership of a customer's work. Adobe hosts content to enable customers to use our applications and services. Customers own their content, and Adobe does not assume any ownership of customers' work. But you can make derivative works off of it, like feeding it through an AI. You see what I'm getting at here. We appreciate our customers who reached out to ask these questions, which has given us an opportunity to clarify our terms and our commitments. We will be clarifying the terms of use acceptance customers see when opening applications. Adobe may also use technologies and other processes, including escalation for manual human review to review for certain types of illegal content or other abusive content or behavior. Again, the moderation and removal of that stuff, I'm for that. Yeah. Don't let that shit exist. But there's some serious vagueness in their words when it comes to AI. Our commitments to our customers have not changed. Adobe does not train Firefly Generative AI on customer content, and Firefly Generative AI models are trained on a data set of licensed content such as Adobe stock and public domain content. Now, remember when you signed away the licenses to your work? When you agreed to their terms? It's technically licensed, isn't it? What exactly does the word license mean in this context? That's how this whole dumpster fire just started burning more and more. Anyway, let's move on here. I'm fine with them moderating illegal materials. You know, that shit's gross. Get rid of it. Okay? Arrest the people that make it. But they keep using the word ownership when it comes to users' files. Now, back to AI. A common defense for the practice of training AI on copyrighted images is to consider it something like fair use. While Adobe may not be claiming ownership of these images, they may be using them to train AI. It's so likely that I'm sure they got their lawyers on speed dial. But then we come back to the too big to fail descriptor. Okay? But before I get into that, let me just say, remember, they said that you have to agree to derivative content based off of your work. AI-generated images can be derivative, right? Anyway, getting back to the whole too big to fail mentality, Adobe has a shitload of money. Okay? They can make a shitload more with improved AI tools. When they get brought to court, they can pay off their legal expenses and still leave with a profit. These technocratic empires all work like this. Google, Meta, TikTok, Twitter, I guess. I don't know. Twitter's been on some shit lately. But that's how they all work. Fighting them is an exercise in futility. I'd recommend leaving the Adobe ecosystem in search of greener and less invasive pastures. Now, besides all this, Adobe software has been on the decline as well. Every time I upgrade Photoshop and Premiere, something's fucked up. Every single time. Also, they changed the colors on the timeline and they're really icky. That gives me the ick. Anyway, the software runs like ass on older computers, like mine, and takes a fucking century just to open. Haven't switched to Clip Studio and DaVinci Resolve. It's a night and day difference. I haven't found a good replacement for InDesign yet, but I've heard Affinity Publisher is a really solid one. And another one that lets you just pay once and have it forever. There are a lot of softwares out there that do what Adobe does, sometimes better for cheaper or even free without the spyware. It's a shame. They used to make good stuff. Some employees from Adobe have even expressed their concerns about the new terms, but I don't care. I moved on. My wallet's a lot happier. I know some of you are going to just say, why don't you sail the 7 seas, John? And sure. I don't care if you do, but I just like when things work and I don't have to do a ton of digging and tweaking, you know, and checking files and all that. I'm too lazy for that. You know what I mean? I just want to pay once and have the shit work. Unfortunately, the legitimate versions don't just work like they used to. I'm enjoying Resolve. Clip Studio is a bit of a learning curve, but not impossible. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, for some plans, luckily for my plan, I didn't have to pay a fee, but for some plans, there are like predatory cancellation fees that like you have to time it right or else you get fined. Or not fined, that's not the right word, but like they give you a fee for cancellation, which is like really insanely scummy, but whatever. Anyway, so all in all, basically Adobe shot themselves in the foot and smeared shit on their customers' faces. This is a really bad move by them and their stocks show it. I'm honestly just done with them, and I'd recommend you move on as well if you haven't already, but that's just my opinion on this. What do you think of this whole situation? Are you still going to let Adobe cuck you because you're too lazy to learn new software? I certainly won't. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video all the way to the end. I appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. You know, if you have any counterpoints, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to read those. And, yeah, Adobe, can blow me. I'll see you next time when I review the Zootopia abortion comic. Yes, seriously. That's for you, Adobe.